He thought the old man was just another nobody. Dusty boots, worn-out uniform, barely speaking. But when that soldier walked in and took off his hat, everything in the restaurant froze. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more such stories. From which country are you watching my video, as I can see where my video is being watched? It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Edward, an old man in his late 70s, walked into a fancy downtown restaurant wearing his faded military uniform. His medals clinked softly with every step he took. His shoes soaked from the puddles outside, and his frail hands trembled slightly as he pulled the door open. Inside, warm lights reflected off polished wooden furniture, and glasses clinked gently. As well-dressed customers enjoyed their meals, Edward stood at the entrance for a moment, scanning the tables. He looked out of place, like a memory from another era accidentally stepping into the present. Behind the counter, Jack, a young waiter in his late 20s, glanced up and saw the old man. He wrinkled his nose slightly and muttered to himself, "Not again. We don't need another crazy old guy scaring away the customers." Jack didn't move from his spot. Instead, he turned back to cleaning glasses and talking to the bartender, laughing about some TikTok video. Edward waited patiently, hoping someone would notice him. Minutes passed. Other waiters noticed him too, but no one approached. The hostess, Sarah, whispered to Jack, "Should we seat him?" Jack replied, "Nah, he's probably here to ask for free food or tell some old war story. Just ignore him. He'll leave." But Edward didn't leave. He slowly walked over to the corner table near the window and sat down quietly. His breathing was a little labored, and his eyes had a kind of sadness that years couldn't erase. He looked outside, watching the raindrops slide down the glass like tiny soldiers retreating. Jack rolled his eyes and walked over to Edward's table with a fake smile. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, his voice dry and dismissive. Edward looked up and nodded. "Just a cup of coffee, please," Jack scoffed internally. He didn't offer a menu, didn't ask about cream or sugar. He walked away muttering, "What's the point? Probably can't afford anything else." As Jack went to prepare the coffee, he passed by another waiter named Kevin, who had been quietly observing everything. Kevin had grown up in a military family. His father had served in the Navy, and his older sister was in the Army. Kevin looked over at Edward and noticed the patch on his sleeve. It was from the Korean War. Something tugged at his heart, but before he could approach, the restaurant door swung open again, and a gust of wind rushed in with a tall, broad-shouldered man in full military gear. His uniform was spotless, his boots heavy, and his presence commanding. The restaurant grew quiet. People turned their heads to look. The soldier walked in with purpose, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Edward. Without saying a word, the soldier marched across the floor. His steps were steady, echoing through the quiet space. When he reached Edward's table, he stood tall, looked the old man in the eye, and then slowly removed his hat and placed it respectfully on the table. The room fell silent. Even Jack stopped mid-step, holding the coffee cup in his hand. "Jachia," soldier spoke firmly. "Sir, may I sit with you?" Edward looked up, surprised, but nodded slowly. "Of course," he said softly. The soldier sat down and extended his hand. "My name is Sergeant Daniel Ross. I read about you in my grandfather's journal. He served with you. You saved his life during the Battle of Jangjin Reservoir." Edward blinked in disbelief. He hadn't heard that name in years. "James Ross?" he asked. Daniel smiled. "Yes, sir. He passed away 5 years ago, but he never forgot you. He told us stories about your bravery, how you carried him on your back for 2 miles under fire." Tears welled up in Edward's eyes. He had lived so long, forgotten by many, treated like a relic of the past. But here was someone who remembered, someone whose life had been shaped by a story he barely even told anymore. Jack, still frozen with the coffee cup, felt a knot tighten in his chest. He walked over and quietly placed the coffee on the table. Would you like something else, sir?" Edward looked at him, not with anger but with kindness. No, thank you, this is just fine. Daniel turned to Jack. He's not just an old man. He's a war hero. Men like him gave us the freedom to sit here and enjoy coffee in peace. My grandfather always said if you ever meet Edward Miller, you treat him like royalty. The manager had been watching everything from the kitchen window. Moved by what he witnessed, he came out, walked over, and offered Edward and Daniel a full meal on the house. "It's the least we can do," he said. Edward hesitated, but Daniel encouraged him. "You've earned it, sir." As they ate, customers around the room began to notice the medals, the conversation, the quiet dignity in Edward's posture. One by one they started coming over, shaking his hand, thanking him for his service, even asking to take pictures. Jack stood. In the corner, guilt washing over him like a wave, he felt ashamed of how quickly he had judged, how easily he had dismissed someone who had lived through more than he could imagine. After the meal, Edward stood up with the help of Daniel. He looked around the room, now filled with respectful silence, and said, "Thank you. I didn't come here for attention. I only wanted to remember my fallen brothers in peace. But today reminded me that maybe their stories still matter." Daniel helped Edward to the door. Before leaving, he turned to Jack and said, "It's never too late to learn respect." Jack nodded, humbled. "I'm sorry, sir," he said quietly. Edward gave a gentle smile and replied, "I've seen worse, son. Just try to see people before you judge them." As the two soldiers, one young, one old, stepped into the rain, the restaurant buzzed not with laughter but with quiet reflection. People spoke in hushed tones about the old man in uniform, the story of heroism that had walked into their lives unannounced. Jack stood near the window, watching them disappear into the mist. He felt changed. Not because he had seen a uniform, but because he had seen the man behind it. From that day on, Jack kept a small framed photo of Edward Miller behind the counter, a photo Daniel had sent him later, along with a letter. The letter read, "Sometimes history walks quietly among us. We must never forget to listen." And Jack never forgot. Whenever an old veteran walked in, or someone who looked out of place, Jack remembered to greet them with kindness. Because sometimes the stories that matter most are the ones we almost didn't hear.